Hey, Jay here. We're on our latest part of our project bike, one of my favorite bikes. This is best off-road bike ever, I like to call it, KTM 350 XCF. Really great bike. We're starting with a 16 version here. We've gone through this thing and done a lot of stuff over the last few months on this thing, and now it's ready for Cycle World magazine. They're going to be testing this thing, seeing what they think of this thing, and I think they'll find out the same thing that I do, that it's a great bike. So we're looking forward to showing you everything on this bike right now. So on this bike, one of the strong points is this new motor. The KTM 350 motor is finally really strong and still really lightweight. This bike is a lot lighter than the 450s and makes really good power. This bike is based on the SX model, which is their motocross model, but comes a little bit more off-road ready. We went ahead and made it more off-road ready. For the motor, we added Henson clutch plates in this thing. We are burning up the stock ones. We also went with a little lighter spring. We like the feel of the lighter spring with the Henson clutch plates and their cover for a little added strength, and looks really cool as well. So the motor in this thing is so good, but for trail riding, we wanted to make it a little bit more reliable. So we added in the Trail Tech fan, which will help cool this thing down when you get in really tight trail situations, as well as the IMS catch can that fits inside the frame. We have the FMF Mega Bomb header on this thing. Really good performance with the FMF full system. It's aluminum 4.1, their RCT system. Really cool setup. We have the spark arrestor in, of course, so we're good off-road riding. Doesn't seem to hurt performance at all. Keeps the sound down a bit as well. CV4 hoses, really trick look with these white ones. Looks really good with our scheme here on our bike. As far as other mods to the engine, we have the Vertex piston, because our bike did have a lot of time on it, believe it or not. We've cleaned this thing up really nice, but we put a new piston in to freshen this thing up and check the valves and so forth. Everything was fine, but we went ahead and replaced the piston. For performance, we added the Vortex ignition. With that ECU in there, we're able to do a little mapping, and their pre-maps are what we're running. We're running their number 1 and 5 maps, are the ones we kind of switch back and forth with our switch, 5 being the most powerful. Cycra has a really nice skid plate for this bike. Fits up really nicely, so we have that on there for protection on the frame. It's kind of a shame this bike doesn't come with a skid plate stock, so you do have to add one. Also, the rear linkage, we found out that you really need to have a guard there. We did ruin one dog bone when we got the bike. It was already smashed there. Without, we're used to the KTMs with PDS. Those bikes don't have anything hanging down to hit rocks and logs. If you're going to off-road this bike seriously, you'll need to have some type of guard here, like this Fastway one, to protect the rear linkage and knuckle. Okay, so for these KTMs, for a few years here, we've had the 4CS forks. Have not been a very popular fork. The fork before this I really liked for off-road. Now they call it their adventure fork. But these 4CS forks, Race Tech went through these things and basically took all the 4CS stuff out and have made them more like regular conventional forks that we have come to really like. The only difference is on both these forks, our rebound is both on top on both sides, and the compression is on the bottom on both sides. So far the performance of these things is really nice. It has them feel a lot like spring forks like I'd feel on a Yamaha or an older Honda that I really enjoy. So a really good upgrade, getting Race Tech to do the forks and shock on this bike. So up top here on our bike for our controls, we really like the Renthal 604 fat bar. It allows a lot of room. As you can see, we have a lot of stuff up here on the bars, so we want to have plenty of room so we don't run a crossbar. We also have added in our Cycra Ultra Pro Bend handguards. They wrap around. I insist on running wrap-around handguards for the trail bikes, because if you drop it, you don't break anything, and it makes it really nice when you're out on the trails. So I insist on that. We have their mounts here. You have to cut into the bar pad like you can see we've done here to make it all fit nice. Off-road bikes, a lot of times you're doing a lot of customizing. We've added in what we call our emergency light. Trail Tech has a really cool light that they've made up here, this 70mm light. It's like 2,500 lumens or something, really powerful light, and it has a high and low beam. It'll last a couple hours on a battery. We've mounted the battery to the back of the front number plate. You can see we're under the stickers here, we've got a couple 4 rivets in here holding this battery to the back of the front number plate. The reason we did this, I didn't want to rob power from, this bike doesn't have a very strong stator, so it's not going to be capable of operating a light without an upgraded stator. We didn't want to go that route, so we thought we'd add in a standalone light battery setup that wouldn't stay plugged in. We'd only plug it in, keep it charged up, only plug it in when we needed it on the way back to the truck if we're out late, and it'll last a couple hours getting us back to where we need to be. So really cool light setup. On the top of the bars, you can also see our vortex switch. This is where we switch in between maps, and we adjust the vortex underneath the seat, and with our switch we can switch in between two maps on the fly. So for the seat on this bike, we did experiment with a shorter seat. I wasn't too happy with it. On this bike, it's shorter than the older bikes, so I'm pretty happy with the stock height seat. Moto Seat added in some pleats for us on top. The stock seat is way too slippery for most usage. I don't know how anybody would like the stock seat cover. So with this seat cover, grips really well, and that's made it up. You can see it touching our IMS tank. IMS makes oversized tanks. This tank was really designed for the SX model. On this model, a little bit of clearance. It's a really tight fit around the fan, so we had to do a little bit of custom molding there to get it to fit well. And the bike only gains about 1/4 to 1/2 gallon of fuel on the XC model. So not a serious upgrade if you already have an XC, but if you have an SX and you're going to do this, this tank would be an easy no-brainer addition. To really give this bike a really good, clean look, we went with all new plastic from Cycra. They have an entire kit. We went with this all white kit with orange graphics from Attack. We kind of got some orange in there to really set this thing off, and it looks really cool with this good new plastic from Cycra and the Attack graphics that we've custom made for our Cycle World bike. Okay, so for the rear of the KTM here, the swing arm, we want to make this thing really strong and durable in all off-road rocky conditions. Bulletproof makes a guard here for the rear 2 swing arm bolts that hold your chain guard on. We have the TM Designs piece here and around the swing arm for real durability on this thing. We have our primary drive chain, O-ring chain, going around this bike with our Renthal twin ring sprocket. Now our gearing on this bike, we played with gearing a bit. Stock is a 50 on the rear. We went up to a 52. This allowed us to be in first gear and really feel good about it in there, and in the gap we're able to stay in second gear a whole lot more on our tighter trails. So we're pretty happy with this 52. I don't see a big reason to change for the type of trails we're doing. I think if you're riding just more wide open desert stuff, I think you'd probably want to be down to that 50 that comes stock. But if you're riding anything tighter than that, I think you'll want to go up to a 51 or 52 at least. For the air filter setup in this bike, we have the Uni air filter with the new setup that they have from KTM. We also, it's really cheap to buy a 2-stroke air filter cage. This gets rid of the backfire screen. So a really good, cheap mod for your bike that you can do on any of the new KTM 4-strokes. You just buy the 2-stroke cage. For an off-road bike, another good, strong modification that you need to do is some good radiator guards. Unless you're really good and you're not going to fall, which I'm not, and I do fall quite often. So I have some of the Trail Tech radiator guards, which kind of really encapsulate the radiator and keep it from getting damaged in a fall over, and also help prevent any sticks or large branches from coming in the front to puncture your radiator as well. So tires are very important. We run on our trails, we'll run this new Dunlop MX 3S tire, which is our kind of our motocross tire. Has a really good grip and will work well in a lot of terrain. We also run a Trials rear tire in any of the rocky, rooty conditions that we're in, and I tend to want to run a Trials tire a lot more than this, and so that's what I'll lean towards. But in this case, we have the new MX 3S Dunlop tire. Up front, we have the new Dunlop AT81 tire, which works really well in just a really wide range of terrain. Hey, so that's a quick look at all these parts, and as you can see, a lot of parts, a lot of money, but if you can afford a brand new KTM 350, you can throw a few good parts on it and make it the ultimate bike. We're gonna go see what Cycle World thinks of this thing right now. that's a wrap on our KTM 350 XCF build. Really fun deal with Cycle World. Check it out in the magazine.